Welcome to the first webinar of the Nifty Mindset Makers Teacher PD series of the 2025-26 school year. I am your host for the series, Denise Ferguson, the Senior Manager of Training and Professional Development here at Nifty. And I'm very excited to have worked with my colleagues to bring some awesome teachers, staff, volunteers, alumni, and of course, entrepreneurs to your attention this year. We have an impactful series planned that showcases how the Nifty curriculum is being applied in classrooms across the country and focuses educators on new innovative ways you can bring entrepreneurship concepts to life in your own classrooms, building the mindsets of our young people. This evening's topic, establishing an entrepreneurial culture in your classroom, is centered around educators setting their programs up for student success. So, just some notes for our audience members out there. You guys, I encourage you to listen carefully. You're going to be getting some great tidbits from our guests, who I'll introduce in a moment. And feel free to take notes if you have any aha moments or you feel like you have a question about something. Feel free to put it into the chat where myself or our panelists will be seeing it, and we'll try to get that answered for you during the question portion of our segment. Okay? And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists for you. Today's panelists, I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. Yes? Okay. Today's panelists are our moderator, Christopher Batiste, who is our Nifty Program Manager for our West Coast region. And then we have a great Nifty educator with us, Albert Mitchell, or Albie, and he is a teacher at the MAKES facilitator at South Technical High School in St. Louis. And then our second panelist this evening is another awesome Nifty colleague of mine, Lauren Patrick, who is our program manager in our Midwest region. So I'm going to hand things over to our moderator, Chris, and I'll be behind the scenes here. Thanks, everyone.
All right, welcome to everyone live and whoever is watching the recording. So this is how we're going to get started first. Our panelists, Albie and Lauren, have prepared some slides to talk a little bit about their own classrooms and their own journey as entrepreneurship educators. So first we'll go with Albie and then with Lauren. And then afterwards we'll have a little conversation with some questions, talking a little bit about their experience as an educator. And audience members will also be able to share their questions as well. So, Albie, go ahead. Let's learn a little bit about you.
Everybody. So I started off with kind of three pictures of what I was going off of at the conception of the program I teach at Design and Entrepreneurship at South Tech High School. So it's a career and technical education school. So all of our programs are registered as CTE programs with the state. And really the idea behind it was to combine a architectural or a design studio space, which is what you see on the left, which is very hands-on, very interactive, very creative, people moving between working with their hands, working on computers, presenting, sketching, drawing, showing ideas, and really kind of thinking and creating through doing. In the middle is a picture of a startup office. I believe that one is actually of Airbnb's office in San Francisco. But we wanted to combine that design studio atmosphere with a kind of startup or co-working type of space environment. And then the last image is of another technical high school. So sort of the traditional high school shop class, and really blend all three of those things together. So that was the vision at the beginning when we created the program. Next slide, please. The thing I've come to realize, and I came into education first, I was trained in architecture and fine art. I started one company that didn't go well. I started a second company. And when I started the second one, I also started to teach at the post-secondary level at a university. And some of the classes I was teaching were related to entrepreneurship and design and architecture. And as I've gotten further into this, the more I think about it is kind of like Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid. And this also connects a lot to the CTE or technical or VOTEC methodology. And, you know, if you've seen any of the Karate Kid movies, it's not, and this is one of the things that really connects to the NFTE curriculum too. So there's a huge emphasis on that entrepreneurial mindset and a lot of the intrinsic characteristics that students need to develop to be successful. And really, that's the approach that Mr. Miyagi and any of the subsequent senseis really take, where they're focused on doing a lot of things that maybe are, sometimes they're fundamentals and foundational things. Sometimes they don't even seem like they're related to they need to do, but they're building up their character, you know, kind of what Mr. Miyagi calls balance, right? And a lot of students, when they get into an entrepreneurship class, they want to like dive right into like the financials or to sell it immediately. That's kind of like Danielson wanting to learn how to punch at the beginning, right? But there's all these other things that have to go with it, because maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, but you're going to run into problems eventually. And that's where all those character-based attributes are really important. Next slide, please. So some of the things that I've learned and started to do in the classroom, one is trying to really cultivate a positive culture. And part of that is celebrating student success. One of the ways, and I stole this from another teacher, I learned it at one of the NFTE training seminars in Florida a couple of years ago, but he was using basically movie prop money, handing it out to students to reward, you know, good class participation, showing up on time, doing a good job on an assignment, and then connecting that back to rewards in the class. So what I started doing was incorporating some of those things. So when students have perfect attendance, when they're in uniform every day of the week that they're required to, I'll incentivize them with what the students started calling Mitchell bucks. And I'll also use it for small competitions in the classroom. And it's great for getting the students engaged with a lot of basic fundamental skills. So we do that on a regular basis. And it's just another way to get them more excited. Most of the prizes we have are like snacks, or they can buy snacks with it, or they can buy materials to use in the maker space. So this particular student got the idea to start bringing in his own supplies and selling them, basically microwave popcorn, and selling it for Mitchell bucks in the classroom, undercutting my prices to make more Mitchell dollars. And it was kind of interesting how it starts to simulate kind of a micro economy in the classroom, where students are trading sometimes Mitchell dollars to help out to do something maybe that another student doesn't know how to do, like edit a video or produce a logo. So there's a lot of interesting things that come out of having that kind of positive reinforcement. I think we called it PBIS, and I can't remember what that stood for, but it was basically all about reinforcing that positive behavior. Next slide. And then the last thing that I've really tried to do as I've gotten more into teaching and been doing this for longer is really leaning on and cultivating a network of people. We call them business partners or industry partners or program advisors, but having them come in for networking events, supporting students as business coaches as they're practicing their pitches, or actually coming in and judging our in-house pitch competition. That's really, really important to student success. And I think it also connects to a lot of other best practices with entrepreneurship, whether it's happening at the college level or in incubators outside of academia. But that's really, really important for students to start to understand how to cultivate and develop those soft skills and start to build the relationships that they need that are going to help them be successful. Because having a strong network is one of the most important things for these students to be successful, not just in the class or with their business, but also in life. I think I've got one more slide here. Okay, yeah, the other two are my tips, I think, for the next section of this. But this is just a picture of what my classroom looks like. I'm very fortunate to have a great space nice furniture, we have nice equipment, we have a maker space on the other side of that wall. But you can also see I've started putting up boards and panels where the students create at the end of the semester. They take their nifty pitch deck and turn it into a poster, and we mount it on foam core. And that way there's an artifact that's left behind after the semester for other students to view so they can see kind of what a successful presentation looks like. And then the other thing is the classroom is just full of all kinds of other artifacts that students have designed and created over the years that kind of give a space for them to share their personality and add their voice to the design of the space. I think that's it, at least as far as that first part, unless you want me to talk about the tips now.
We could leave that till the end. Thank you, Albie. It's a cool space right there. I wish I had a classroom that big. I remember I think I taught in like a storage closet at some point when I taught. That was a good
Yeah,
time.
it's a huge space. I think my classroom, when I started teaching, it was bigger than my whole house. It was pretty crazy.
What a blessing. What a
Yeah,
blessing.
definitely.
Thank you for sharing your experience. We'll delve more into classroom culture and how you've gotten to become like an entrepreneurship teacher in a bit. But let's hear from Lauren.
Hello, everyone. I am Lauren Patrick, and I have the privilege of actually serving in two different capacities. So, one is I am the regional program manager for NFTE Midwest, and I also work a part-time job as a manager for the St. Louis Science Center, where I've gotten the privilege of teaching some entrepreneurship courses to middle and high school students. And I'll be kind of talking about this from two different perspectives. One as a Nifty teacher who taught Nifty for several years, and then also from the program manager perspective as well. I've had the privilege of working with teachers across the Midwest, including Mr. Mitchell, who is a phenomenal teacher, and it's always super cool to see the kids in his makerspace and fabrication lab putting in hard work to create business prototypes and business pitches. And I would love to share more. So we'll go ahead and dive in. One of the things that I wanted to kind of start off with is some words of encouragement for those of you watching either live or you're watching the recording. And that is, you can do this. Absolutely 1,000%. To tell you a little bit about me, I did not start off as a business entrepreneurship teacher. I actually am a trained, certified, experienced science teacher. And that's the space that I came from. I did not have an education in business. I did not come from corporates. So almost all of you, if not all of you, have more experience coming into this. If you're new to this, then certainly I had. So please understand, you can do this. I spent over a decade teaching in the public school system. I also taught for nonprofits such as the St. Louis Science Center. I've had the privilege of teaching Biz Camp, Entrepreneurship 1, Entrepreneurship 2, and then some cross-disciplinary courses that involve Nifty as well. And I love Nifty. I'm very passionate about it, not just because I work for Nifty, but I actually came to work for Nifty because I'm such a champion of the program. The amount of support that I got from my regional office, from the trainers, from different webinars and workshops like this, took someone that was a science teacher by trade, education, and experience and turned me into an effective entrepreneurship educator. Next slide, please. To tell you a little bit about the space that I got to teach in, the way I got connected with Nifty, you might be wondering, how was I a science teacher and then turned into a business entrepreneurship teacher, is my administrators wanted the kids to create STEM-based businesses. And so we created a hybrid course model where they would do Nifty and create STEM-based businesses for their entrepreneurial project. Just like Mr. Mitchell, I also have the privilege of working in a makerspace lab. You can see it pictured here with the within the St. Louis Science Center's Community Resource Center. And we blend STEM integration, makerspace innovation, and strategic partnerships. I love connecting the kids with different external partnerships, such as with NFTE, obviously, but also some of the local universities, colleges, some of the corporate sponsors, donors, anyone that can offer either STEM or business experiences for the students. And let's say if in the event that you don't have something like a maker space, that's quite okay. A lot of the equipment, supplies, tools are now a lot more accessible than when I first started teaching years ago. And even if it's not a full maker space, you can still create and simulate that environment where you just get kids excited about innovation, prototyping, iterating. Next slide, please. So I'll kind of tell you a little bit about some of the experiences, just to kind of help inspire you all. And then for the next part, after we do the Q&A, I'll share some tips, tricks, strategies that I've learned both as a teacher, but also as a program manager as well. So some of the businesses that students have created, one on the left you see there is Maya, and all of these are students that have gone on to compete at the national level at some point. So Maya and her partner Nyla, they're pictured in the center, created a business called Afro-Hispanic Atmosphere that empowers and educates Black and Latinx communities to pursue STEM. And in the makerspace, they were able to create t-shirts. We had a t-shirt printer. They were able to own accessories. We things like 3D laser cutters, and they were able to just get creative and make their designs and make it fun. And Maya now is a program manager in a STEM program, and she's also a marketing consultant. She got her degree in business marketing. And then Michael in the center, he is currently pursuing his master's in teaching. And he started I'm Not a Statistic when he was in the NFTE course. And it is a program that helps kids of color by providing academic support, mentorship, and resources. And it currently is operational in 3 different states, Missouri, Kansas, and Louisiana. And he's helping students by connecting them with resources and academic support. And then you'll see Kiara on the right. Kiara finished high school in 2023. She graduated from both University City and North Technical High School, and she finished with a certification in fashion, textiles, and apparel. And she created a sustainable fashion brand where she upcycles clothes. And it also is an operational business where she is saving the planet one design at a time. Next slide, please. For the next set, right here on the left, she is a 16-year-old teenage girl. And last year, she got to present on a national stage at the TIES STEM convening in Chicago. She got to present her business. She also won this year's NFTE Midwest E2 competition. She took first place for her business, Lights On, where she helps turn on the lights for people with disabilities by providing accessible clothing and prosthetics. And in the middle, you'll see Layla and Anthony, and they created a business called Quick Farm, where they actually coded an app that would connect farmers and people in need to help bridge the gap for food deserts in St. Louis, which is really huge, especially in the inner city of St. Louis. Layla went on to obtain an agribusiness degree, and now she's pursuing her master's degree in sustainability management. And Anthony obtained his business administration degree and is now currently a school teacher. And the last but not least, you see one of the younger competitors. She actually just finished competing in New York as a quarterfinalist in the NFTE National competition, but she's currently working on launching her business, Rise and Thrive, that will help single-parent households in St. Louis be able to rise and thrive and to get connected to resources. And I point out these examples as inspiration, but also I wanted to take a moment to kind of talk about how do we get here? How did we get from first day of NFTE NFTE, doing something like the product innovation game and getting excited about entrepreneurship and maybe just learning a little bit about it to the point where these young people are being agents of change in the community. And in part, some of the things that I love to do is just create an atmosphere where kids feel comfortable, they feel welcome, they're energetic, they're excited, they're surrounded by lots of support. I bring in a lot of mentors, coaches, we do field experiences, but also we work on an entrepreneurial mindset. So we do different activities to help them be able to feel comfortable public speaking, collaborating, creating, innovating. And I also like do my best to help them understand like the only limits is the limits that they place on themselves. So I want them to see like they can be agents of change. They can be leaders in the community. It doesn't matter if they're 13, 14, 15, 16. I want them to see themselves in those powerful roles. And I think that helps to elevate their thinking and what they want to pursue and not just see this as like a classroom project, but really help them to see like this can be for real. Like you can actually pursue this after you finish school. And even if it's not this particular business, there might be another business venture or another leadership role that you would like to have. And I'll share more once we get to the second part.
All right, thank you, Lauren. So we're gonna move on to the questions. Actually, from your presentations, we've covered some of the questions already. So we're gonna take a look at a couple of them that I would like to delve a little bit more on what you've spoken about. All right. So here we got a question. So how do you define having an entrepreneurial culture and how does it shape your classroom environment and culture? So from the examples that you both provided, I mean it's really great that there are those great spaces, those maker spaces, having those resources. But given the way that our country is with education, like not all educators have that, right? So just thinking kind of on the essence of what makes a great culture, a classroom culture in terms of entrepreneurship, like what's kind of the kernel that that helps create that culture that get kids excited to be creative?
Um, I can go first. For me, I think one of the biggest things is to your point, like, yes, I've had the privilege of having a lot of resources, but that's not always the case everywhere. So, like, I always like to start off with having an entrepreneurial mindset and really diving deeply into that. So, like, in not just my classroom, but in classrooms that I've had the privilege of getting to visit as a program manager, one of the things that I've seen that helps build an entrepreneurial culture is getting kids excited about learning, building very strong relationships and rapport with the students, getting them to tap into their passions, helping inspire them and helping them to see that there's no limits, like they can take this as far and as high as imaginable. Also, I do my best to model the entrepreneurial mindset as well. And so, like, I do my best not to be a sage on the stage, but more of a guide on the side where I want them to take the ownership of their businesses. As I tell them, I'm here to facilitate, coach, be your champion. But at the end of the day, this is your business. So it has to be your vision, it has to be your dreams. You're in the driver's seat making the decisions. And so, like, that's something that you'll see not only in my class, but in classrooms across the region, where teachers are kind of handing over a lot of the power and the decision making to the students. And I think that resonates really well with middle and high school students who are at that developmental stage where they're wanting to feel more like an adult, more like a leader that is preparing to enter into the world. So I think having just that mindset of being creative, solving problems, making it very real world and authentic. My students and the students across the Midwest, we think about it not like we're not just like doing a project, but how can we actually solve these problems in the community? How can we support the community in this? And those are things that I think help to shape that classroom culture to make kids excited to want to be successful.
I'll piggyback on what Lauren was saying there. So one of the things that I think is really important for the entrepreneurial culture to be successful, it kind of goes back to all the stuff that everybody teaches everybody in kindergarten, and then most people forget or think only applies to little kids at some point. But having that level of respect, not just from the students towards the teacher, but really going in all directions between the students, from the teacher back to the students, from the guests coming in, all everybody who enters that space. That's really, really important because, doing what we all do in this classroom, in these classrooms with the students, and what the students are doing is really hard. And if they're going to put themselves out there and take risks, it doesn't always work out. And so you have to have the type of culture and the type of environment that's not going to say, I told you so, or punish the kids when things don't turn out, even if they're making mistakes, or even if you do warn them, because that can be a really powerful lesson for them. But also, if you make it so that they feel like, well, I'm not going to take a chance again, that's exactly the wrong lesson we want them to learn from going through a program like this. The other piece, and when I think about entrepreneurial culture and the mindset, I think a big piece of it is one, being aware of problems, being able to, being observant, being able to see and identify them, but not just in a cynical way where it's like, oh, this is all trash, nothing's ever going to get better, but to identify those problems and to have the optimism and the sense of agency that you can actually turn that problem into an opportunity and make things better, whether it's for yourself or the people you care about, your community. So I think that that's kind of at the core what I think that entrepreneurial culture really is about having not just a zero-sum attitude towards business in the world, but how do you really solve problems, add value, and build wealth for you and your community and make everybody's lives better. I think that's kind of the crux of it.
All right. Thank you. Definitely important on building that framework, providing like a comfortable space for students to take risks and to possibly fail. But that's okay, right? That's how you succeed. When you try a bunch of things, sometimes it doesn't work, but at least you learn like something doesn't work, right? Denise, let's go to the next question because I want to follow up on that a little bit more. All right, so talk a little bit about culture. So our next question is, what's a key way to create innovative classroom culture for entrepreneurship students? I do want to get a little bit more granular here in terms of like you both of you spoke a lot of great things about like what that classroom culture looks like, but how do you? I'm thinking I would like to know like what is a specific thing. It could be like a lesson or activity, like first week of school, first day of school to help establish that culture to get students comfortable to do the things that you've said that your classroom culture does establish. So just want to know a little bit more about your strategy so those who are listening live, as well as those who are listening to the recording, can be like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I'd like to try that.
Sure. I can go first. I think the entrepreneurial mindset like lessons do a great job, like the Power Tower one, the entrepreneurial product innovation one. So that very first like unit 0, I think does a great job of like helping to set the culture and the pace of the class. Something else like specifically like for lessons that I also do in my classes, and I've seen other teachers across the region do some type of like activity that's similar, is I like to in the first couple weeks kind of open it up with like a mini challenge, and from year to year I kind of switch it up and change it depending on like what the weather's like and the particular students I have. But some of the ones that we've done is like a kind of like smoothie challenge. We've done fruit parfait challenges where it's just a fun way for the kids to work in groups, for them to start to feel comfortable with risk taking, for them to be rewarded and awarded for their efforts, no matter how it turns out, for start to build that rapport and mutual respect. And like, for instance, they'll have to create their signature dish, and then they'll have to create a mini fast pitch for it. And it kind of almost works like Chef Wars, where then they have to actually create the dish and we kind of try it out and everybody kind of shares feedback. But it's just a fun way to kind of get kids in that mindset of being entrepreneurs, but it's low stakes because it's just like an ice cream signature dish or a parfait or a smoothie. But it's a fun activity that I like to do at the beginning of the school year to get kids excited.
I like the food aspect. Food is definitely a very community building, unifying
Yeah,
activity.
for sure. And I feel like with men on high schools, you can't go wrong with like food either. Like
Yeah,
they're always
exactly.
ready to eat. You can't go wrong.
Same. All right, go ahead, Albie.
Definitely true. They're always hungry. So a couple of other things in addition to some of the uh, what is called Unit Zero activities Lauren was talking about. One of the ones I love, which is a great team activity, is the Marshmallow Challenge. You can Google that. Basically, the students have 18 minutes and you give them, I think it's like 20 pieces of spaghetti, a yard of tape, a yard of string, and a big Stay Puff marshmallow. And they have to build the tallest tower they can in 18 minutes. And it's a lot of fun. They get excited about it. They have to collaborate. They have to communicate. They have to practice a lot of those different entrepreneurial mindsets. And it's something you can do with just, about $5 worth of materials. And then you'll actually have enough to run it multiple times. So that's a lot of fun. Works for a whole bunch of different ages. One of the other activities that we often do at the beginning of the school year, maybe at the end of the first week or the beginning of the second week, is we'll do a design thinking challenge. And the way that I'll set it up, and sometimes we'll do it in, one long block period, but usually we'll spread it out over 2 days. So it might take 2 to 3 hours to complete the whole activity. But I give them a problem or a situation, and it has to be something that they're familiar with or that they have some knowledge of. They work in groups, they interview everybody in the group to talk about, what are the issues or challenges that they see with something. I think a few years ago, we did face masks, right? What's the problem with face masks, right? Because that was a year where everybody was coming in and they still had to wear them in the classroom. And they had to figure out who they wanted their user to be, and then identify what the problem was, and then come up with some ideas about how to solve the problem, and then prototype what their solution is, and then present that prototype to the class and kind of do a little bit of evaluative feedback. But it's a great introduction to that design thinking process, and gets the students to where they get to know each other. And it touches on a lot of the different pieces of that entrepreneurial process before you get into, having to understand how, meta ads work or cost structure or any of those more technical things. So it's a lot of fun.
Great. Well, it seems like two things we're getting out of this. Number one, connecting the materials to like community experience, and also food is a big motivator for kids. How do they not eat the marshmallows?
Well, sometimes they do, but usually it gets handled by a lot of people. And it's kind of like, well, one, they also can't win if they eat the marshmallow. Sometimes the students will beg for additional marshmallows as well. Usually, what I'll do is I'll save them and the bag has been open, so they're pretty gross and stale by the time they get to them. So that's another way you can deal with it, but
Okay.
or you can just let them eat some marshmallows, and
I don't know. When I was
it's
a
kind
kid,
of
I'd
up
eat
to
stuff
you.
off the floor. So anyway, excellent. Yeah, and Denise also provided the marshmallow activity in the chat as well, if you're interested in it. It also seems like manipulatives are a big thing as well, right? It doesn't have to be expensive. You go to the dollar store, get like $10 worth of stuff, and then it'll be a learning experience for the kids. So thank you for sharing that. All right, Denise, let's go to the next question. And I'm thinking about this one as well. So it says, where does creativity and innovation fall within your entrepreneurial mindset domains, and what role does that play in your classroom? Looking at this question, I'm particularly thinking about like those specific kids in your class who may struggle a little bit in unleashing that creative and innovative side of themselves. Because I remember as a teacher trying to get kids to be creative, trying to get them to think of ideas, and a lot of them default to like, I don't know, right? So how do you push kids beyond the I don't know and then help them feel comfortable in being creative and taking risks? And what are some specific things you may do with that?
Something I do at the beginning of the school year is we do a number of team building activities. And it might seem kind of like, okay, team building, how does this relate to like them being more entrepreneurial? But there is a correlation. So like what I have found is kids, when they feel like they're in an environment where they're comfortable, where they're safe in all the domains, where they are free to take risk and fail and it be okay. It's not going to be like a disaster if they fail. They're not afraid to step outside of the box and be more creative and innovative. And so like building that culture and circle of support first, and then kind of like introducing the part where we then kind of go into them having to be more creative for their nifty businesses. A couple other things that I like to do in the class to kind of stretch their creativity and innovation is we do a lot of research about what the competition is out there. Like, so for whatever business that they have to find at least 4 different competitors or as close as they can get if it's something that's truly innovative. And then they have to go through and really think through how are they going to make themselves different, better, bigger, something that truly can speak to, let's say, judges in a competition. And I think that that also helps to stretch them as well, because as we talk about in the class, you can't just like reinvent the wheel. Like if you're going to break it to the industry and to the market, you have to have something that differentiates yourself, and seeing what's already out there and then pushing them further, I think helps. And then the last thing that I do in the class to help kind of like stretch creativity and innovation for students. And I know a number of teachers that use this as well. And I think that their business pitches at the end of the school year tend to be the more creative and innovative business pitches. I just think about Mr. Mitchell as an example, is teachers that leverage different mentors, coaches along the way, because they're going to have different challenge questions, guiding questions for the kids to really kind of help stretch and get them to think outside of the box. And for those teachers watching, if you're like, I don't necessarily have any connections, please reach out to your regional program offices, because surely they have connections to get you hooked up with guest speakers, mentors, volunteers, coaches for your class.
So I'll add to that a little bit. So I think one of the things that can make creativity or coming up with a innovative solution a challenge for students is like if you hand them a blank piece of paper and say, draw something for me, some of them are going to get stumped by that and they're going to say, well, what do I draw? Right. And this is true, I think, in design and in all of its forms. The more kind of constraints or limitations that you introduce, it actually opens up the students to be more creative, because then they don't have to think so much about, well, what is my topic or what is my concept or what's this whole thing about? But suddenly when they have certain limitations in front of them, then they have to work within those and they come up with new and unique ways of whether it's solving a problem or designing a product or putting different things together in a way that nobody has seen before.
Can you give me an
Um,
example? I'm sorry, finish your thought.
well, so one of the things that we do in the class, so we do a drawing prompt every Friday, and we spend anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes drawing, and it's great for practicing visual communication. And sometimes it's pretty open-ended what the students can draw, but sometimes it's pretty prescriptive. Like a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, we did one, and it was instructing the students to draw a landscape using only circles. So they had to invent a way to create a drawing, and there's multiple ways to do it using a language of circles, essentially. So that's one example where limitations can push students to be creative, where they would create something that they would have never thought of or imagined beforehand, right? And that's true, I think, with business concepts too, is pushing them to understand what are the key issues at play, what are your limitations, and then how can you work within those limitations and constraints and still do something. And you see that in a lot of the NFTE activities too. So we just did the activity where I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's in domain one. It's one of the first hands-on things they do. And I think I modified it a little bit, but I broke the students up into teams. I gave them a bag and they had to make something. It was full of ordinary household objects, which I don't really know what those are, but I basically took things we had around the classroom, like string, paper clips, pencils, sponges, and then I think I put one unique thing in each bag, and I told them they had to solve a problem using the contents of the bag. And they had a very short period of time. And it wasn't like they came up with these beautiful, great, solutions to a particular problem, but they had to figure out a way to take what they had and put it together quickly, right? And a lot of creativity is more like improv with a yes and mindset, or to use a musical analogy, it's more like hip hop or types of music where instead of I'm going to compose my own symphony, I'm going to sample something else and I'm going to remix it, or I'm going to sample multiple things that I like, and then I'm going to rearrange them and compose them into something that's new and unique. So I think that that's a piece of how I think of creativity, because we don't really work in vacuums, right? So we're always constantly being influenced by everything around us, things we see, the ideas that we come up with. And the other piece of it is I don't put that much emphasis on originality. I'm not concerned about every team having a unique and distinct business idea, or that their business is totally unique and original from other things that are out there. And it doesn't mean that they don't have to figure out, like Lauren was saying, how to differentiate their business when they look at their competition, because they still do. It has to have some aspect where it can outperform that competition for some customers in some respect. But it doesn't have to be completely unique in all aspects.
Perfect. Thank you for providing those specific instructional strategies. Denise, we are at 5:44, so I feel like this is a good time to move on to the next part where we talk about best practices, resources that our panelists have collected. Do we have any questions in the Q&A or the chat? I'm not sure if I have access to those. Are we good? All right.
We are actually good. If
Okay.
anyone does have any questions, please remember to put it in the chat. But I'm going to take off these questions so that you guys can get to your tips, and I will put that back up. Oh, but I did have actually there is somewhat of a question. It's very similar to this question as far as like building community and collaboration with the greater school community. And I think you guys touched base on it a little bit in terms of bringing in volunteers and things like that.
I mean, yeah, we could expand on that a little bit. Like, I'm particularly thinking, like, we talked a lot about classroom culture, but the culture of entrepreneurship is also kind of a contagious one, right? You see people succeed, you see people creative, and you're like, oh, I want in on that. So I'm just wondering a little bit about what's kind of the perception, and how does your classroom culture impact like your school community or the greater community? And we also have another question here as well, which we can follow up with after answering this question.
So like I'll kind of speak for myself, and then also some of the other teachers I've gotten to see their class and school community in action. It's been my experience that NFTE tends to have like a really fun, engaging culture and atmosphere. And so like the kids tend to be really engaged and really into it. And that like draws the attention of other teachers in the school community. And so like a number of classes, including my own and several other teachers that I know in the region, have gotten to do like cross-disciplinary collaborations, like with different classes. I'll give you an example. One of them in U City last year, the entrepreneurship class coupled with the sustainability class, and they actually combined and did some projects together where the sustainability class created some different products from their garden space, and the entrepreneurs created different fast pitches for them to be able to do. And then some of them created like business plans for them to be able to do. At the Science Center, we've gotten to collaborate with the media arts program, with the engineering program, and to do different collaborations where NFTE often spills out into the greater school community. Another way that I've seen that play out is in competition season. There be teachers, administrators that have come in and help to judge, but sometimes schools, depending on their resource level, also host like full school competitions where the NFTE kids can kind of showcase to the entire school district, which is pretty cool. And then I did see a question in the chat too, about incentives. I
Yeah.
love the idea about the stipend. I think that's pretty cool. Like, I think that sounds amazing. And I also use a lot of incentives in the class too. Mr. Mitchell, I love your idea about the Mitchell Bucks and getting kids excited. I've used food prizes, I've used cash prizes. The way that I decide like how much is, I always kind of think about how big is the scope of the project. So if it's something they can complete, like let's say it's a quick activity and it's 20, 30 minutes and I want to incentivize it, I might offer like food or like a small gift card, or sometimes I'll even do like board games, things like that that they could take home and have fun with. If it's a multi like week type deal or multi-class type deal, like then I'll offer sometimes cash prizes for a winner of a fast pitch competition, and I'll bring in admin or someone else to judge. But I think it kind of depends on the scope of how big the project is that we're asking them to do. But the idea that you have there, I think, is like pretty cool too.
Albie, do you have anything to add regarding this idea?
Yeah, so most of, we don't have cash prizes for the students for our in-school competition. We rely on the NFTE Pitch Challenge, or if there's other pitches that are happening locally that students participate in, that's another opportunity, because we're pretty fortunate that there's a rich entrepreneurial ecosystem here, both for startups, colleges and universities, and at the high school level. There's, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 different entrepreneurship programs in St. Louis that are pretty good, I would say. And there's also more and more after school programs and nonprofits and other places that are also working in that entrepreneurship space more and more all the time throughout the state of Missouri. But one of the things, so, the Mitchell Bucks, most of the stuff they can get is pretty low value, or if I go to a conference or something, I get free stuff. I'll sometimes let the students buy that sort of thing with the Mitchell dollars, but we're not talking expensive stuff. But we're trying something new this year. So I was able to identify a grant through, I think it's Empower, that allowed me to get basically a prepaid Visa card with a few $100s on it. And we're using that to do a pop-up popcorn store kind of as a competition. So the students get a certain amount of, there's a cap on their startup funds. I've bought a couple different poppers that they can use, and we're charging them to sell on campus and have the protection of the school's liability insurance. But they basically, each team gets 1 week to sell as much popcorn as they can, but they have to figure out, what the stuff is they need to buy, what their selling price is, their contribution margin, their break even. And if they can make a profit as a team, and I'm not talking about like a $4 profit, but if there's 3 or 4 people on each team, if they can make, say like $30 or $100, then we'll take their profit. And the plan is to buy gift cards to reward the students and pay that profit back. And with some of the overhead expenses, that'll hopefully give us the revenue going into what we call a Rotary fund at the school that we can, run the competition again. So we haven't done this before. I don't know if they're going to make a little money or if they're going to make a lot of money or if we're all going to lose money. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But the good news is popcorn's not that expensive. And I'm looking forward to see how this turns out. So it'll be fun.
All right. Thank you for your ideas. I mean, I taught seniors and they love stickers. Like, I don't know why, but that sometimes the little things that they kind of get excited over. So, great. So yeah, we're running a little behind. So let's go over our best practices. Albie, I see that your slide is first. Go ahead.
All right. So kind of continuing on the Karate Kid, I learned about from watching, I think it was the Woodwright's Workshop, one of those PBS shows on the weekend. There's this old Scandinavian book called The Teacher's Handbook of Sloyd. And I haven't actually read it, but I was really fascinated by it from listening to 2 old woodworkers on a TV show talk about it. And they talked about how basically in Scandinavia, there was this idea about trade school and everybody went to it. It didn't matter if your family was poor or they were like the wealthiest bankers in town. Everybody learned how to become a carpenter, and they would learn all these skills because they believed that it was really important to develop character as a person. And through developing the ability to do that, they could then transfer those skills to much higher order activities, solving problems, doing all kinds of things, right? And it's very much the same sort of approach that I take in my class, both with the hands-on shop stuff, but also with the entrepreneurship curriculum. But this is a kind of summary of some of the key points that I think really connect to teaching entrepreneurship. And then can you go to the next slide? So some tips and best practices that I've found. One is that real world relevance matters. Whether you're teaching entrepreneurship or anything else, students need to be told how whatever these principles, concepts, ideas are, how they connect back to the real world and how they're going to actually benefit them in their lives. And if you can't do that, then they might tune it out and they might not get what they need. And one of the ways that I try to do that is to tell stories, whether it's from my own time running a business or other people I've known who've run businesses. And the more that I think you can do that, the better a lot of what you're trying to teach them sticks. Kind of like Lauren was saying, you want to model that entrepreneurial mindset, but also modeling that professionalism. We talk about that all the time, and that really connects back to the soft skills that are really important for students to be successful. And that's one of the things that in my school, we hear when we talk with our industry partners from all over the place, where it seems like that's oftentimes the biggest deficiency is students don't have either the work ethic or the soft skills to be successful. And if you can cultivate that, then they can handle the technical skills to bring the students up or the young adults up to wherever they need to be successful. Another thing, and I've learned this from watching some other talented people and how they approach and teach entrepreneurship. So I think Lauren said less sage on the stage, and I think that's true. So you want to leave room for your students to do and to work and to, develop their businesses. Now, sometimes that's easier said than done because if students have work time, they might get off task, but they do need that time to do those things. And a lot of what I try to do working with partners is allowing them to be the experts, because even if I was going to say the same stuff, when there's somebody else who comes in that they haven't met before and they work at a company or they've started a cool new business, the students might listen to them more than me. The other thing is to find champions for your program and your students. So again, that's those outside relationships. And part of how I do that is, well, one, attending some networking events in the community, also attending other people teaching similar entrepreneurship programs. So getting to know those people and relying on them as a resource for ideas. But some of the things that have been really successful for me, one is reaching out to the local SCORE chapter. Not every city is going to have one, but there's quite a few. So SCORE is basically a non-for-profit organization that works in partnership with the SBA, offering free mentorship services to entrepreneurs. And so I've connected with them this year, and we've had guest speakers come in. We've had people working one-on-one with students as mentors. The other thing is the public library system. So here in St. Louis County, and I think it's true in most places that I've visited or been to, our library has a fantastic collection of resources that are free and publicly available. They have databases for doing market research. They have reference librarians that specialize in working with entrepreneurs and small business owners to help them conduct that research. The CIC, so that stands for the Cambridge Innovation Center. And we're in St. Louis, not Cambridge, but they have a presence here in St. Louis. So if they're active in your community, I would look into them, but they do a lot of training and other events and things related to entrepreneurship. And then the Small Business Administration. You can also reach out to chambers of commerce if you don't have any of these other resources in your community. But those are some of the places that I would reach out to try to cultivate and build that network. We already talked about constraints and limitations related to creativity. And then the other thing I wanted to share, so NFTE is great and fantastic, but Empower, that's the educational organization that I applied for that grant. They have some additional free resources that you can apply to. They have a hub that you can join on to, which has lots of other lesson plans. There's people active on there that you can network with or get ideas from how they're deploying that curriculum. Venture Lab is a competitor of NFTE, but they also have some free resources out there. So if you're looking for a different take or ways to backfill or augment that NFTE curriculum or to differentiate it, you can use that. And then another startup competitor in the entrepreneurship space is teachingentrpreneurship.org. They hosted some professional development trainings last May, and they were pretty good. They've also developed some pretty interesting AI tools, and they have some free lessons and other things available. So I think it's always good to stay aware of what other tools and resources are available that can help you both refresh and kind of enhance utilizing that NFTE curriculum.
Thank you, Albie. Lauren, you'd like to share some of your best practices quickly?
Sure. I know we're about at time, so I can kind of like I completely co-sign what Albie Mitchell just said. So I'll kind of keep it very brief, but I will also add that in addition to everything he said, which absolutely, I would also say don't hesitate or be afraid to be a learner alongside the students. Most classrooms, I would say, have anywhere between 15 to 35 businesses going simultaneously, depending on how many partners and how many individual sole proprietorships you have. And so, like, you know, if you have 35 businesses going at once, you have to like kind of embrace the entrepreneur mindset and model that for students and show what it's like to learn and be resourceful. I would also say like leverage technology, leverage artificial intelligence. Don't be afraid of it, embrace it. This is the world that our students will very soon enter into as young ladies and young gentlemen in the present day. And so like helping them be good stewards and helping them with digital responsibility, I think is the play and not necessarily like of banning it entirely. In a lot of the classes I've been in, including my own, we kind of use it just as a resource for research and brainstorming, but obviously the vision, the dreams, the aspirations have to be the students. And then lastly, the realer you can make it, the more authentic you can make it for the kids, I think the better. And I think that goes back to having those field experiences, those partnerships, public celebrations, incentives, helping them to really feel like young entrepreneurs in this space, I think is crucial. And then the last kind of like resource I'm happy to offer is myself is like, feel free. Like I said before, I've taught NFTE. I'm also one of the program managers. You can always reach out to me. That's my contact information there, and I'm happy to support. And if I don't have the answer, I will find the answer.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you, Albie, for both of you for sharing your expertise. Looks like we're at time. Denise, is there anything else we'd like to cover?
No, I just want to say thank you guys for being a part of our panel. I think you guys had some great, very insightful information for our teachers. I hope you all, as listeners, as viewers, were able to really get something out of today's webinar. And just as a reminder, and I'll just put it up very quickly, we have some upcoming webinars. Our next one will be next in December, and that will be, sorry about that. That will be on December 10th, and we'll be actually diving into something that Lauren and Albie just mentioned, which is AI. We'll be exploring a few AI tools for entrepreneurial learning and some tools that you all as teachers can perhaps start using in the classroom with your students to really help enhance iteration and critical thinking, because we don't want the students to be using these tools as their brain, but we want it to really work with them and help them to understand that, hey, it's doing the fast work for them, but they still have to analyze and be able to understand what is going on with their business. And so we'll be exploring that a little bit, as well as some of the ethics of that. So I look forward to seeing you all not next month, but in December. And thank you both for being with us tonight.